So my name is Shashank Nigam. I'm with this company called SimpliFlying. We're the world's largest airline marketing firm. We've worked with about 70 airlines and airports, specifically on airline marketing and airline sales. And we've become very well known for our work in digital and social and all the new cutting-edge stuff. One of the most exciting projects I did was about a year ago. I was working with Qatar Airways' new startup, Airlines, as their head of marketing and digital, which was a really fun project in Doha. Of course, the startup didn't take off, not yet, due to political reasons, but it was a lot of fun. Let's focus on the future and what's coming. The thing is, today, everyone is connected. How many of you have your mobile device outside within your eyesight right now? I guess most of you. In your pocket? All of you. Anyone left it up in the room? No one, right? How many of you have at least 2 devices on this trip with you? Okay, everyone, almost everyone. Anyone still has a Nokia, by the way? No, right? Everyone is connected. All of us are connected. And that changes everything. It's really human behavior. Just to show you some statistics, and this is just Facebook, okay? On Facebook today, there are 890 million people. This is actually, there you go, 1.39 billion people on Facebook. It's the largest country. 700 million people on Facebook groups. There are different groups. WhatsApp, which is also owned by Facebook, has 700 million people. Messenger, which is a chat service by Facebook, has 500 million people. And Instagram has 300 million. And this is in a day, okay? In a day, there are 890 million Facebook posts by these 1.39 billion people. I'm sure a lot of you might have posted the moment you came to Rome that you're here. 1 billion searches, 2 billion photos shared, 3 billion videos posted per day on Facebook. It's just insane. The numbers are huge. And we are talking about a sizable shift in the way people behave. And this impacts travel as well. It's not just, just the social side of things. There's no big disconnect. Everything is interlinked, right? So how does this impact travelers? Let's look at some travel statistics. Travelers are connected too. In the flight, you've got 97% of the people who have some form of a device. In fact, on an A380, can anyone guess, on a typical A380, how many devices there are? Any guesses? Make a wild guess. Whoa, 1,000. That's a lot. It's about 800 devices on an A380. And I bet you half of them do not turn it off for takeoff and landing. They actually turn it on and film it, right? 81% carry a smartphone. There are 43% bringing a tablet. There are people with laptops. 18% bringing all 3. People are traveling with this stuff, right? They're not just keeping them at home, as we saw in the room a minute ago. Who can tell me how many devices this guy has? Who can count? 4, 5? Let's see, okay? He's got one iPad here. There's a big IBM laptop. There's a camera here. You see his little company BlackBerry right there? There's a keyboard for his iPad that's attachable. And that's just the devices. If we count the screens, there are 2 more screens in front of him as well. And he's traveling in economy class. This is not even up front. People today carry their living room up in the air. Which airline is this? Qatar Airways, right? Because that's why they give you so many screens. This is on their new 787. And of course, it has Wi-Fi, so this guy's able to do all the work while he's traveling as well. Now, the interesting thing is that it's not just that travelers are connected. When they're connected, guess what? On Twitter, 49% of people who complain on Twitter about an airline or say something expect the company to read the complaint. 83% love receiving a response, even if the response is, I'm looking into it. Not necessarily a resolution, but just, hey, I heard you. Yeah? On Facebook, you've got 32% of users who are more likely to buy from that brand if they already follow the brand. You've got 51% who are more likely to purchase from that brand, actually, not 31. And over here, you've got if their friends already like a brand, they are also going to like a brand. There's this whole online behavior versus real-world behavior transition that's happening. Okay? Now, how does this all impact airlines, and what does this all mean? We'll look into that, but before that, I want to get into apps, and just 4 apps that I want to touch, which are dramatically changing consumer behavior. Let's look at Amazon to begin with. Amazon has changed the way people shop today. Imagine you're at an airport duty-free, okay, and you see this shiny Nikon camera, and it says, cheaper than High Street, cheaper than Main Street, and 50% off. And the camera is there, and it's like $1,000. And you're thinking, hey, is it really $1,000? Is it really cheap, or am I getting conned? They say it's tax-free, but sometimes they jack it up 50% and then down 30%. I'm not really sure. Guess what? Do you know you can open the Amazon app today and just scan the barcode of that camera, and Amazon gives you the real price of that camera on Amazon. Not only that, you can then order it on Amazon and get it delivered to home, and if you have Prime, it's at home before you land, within a day or 2. Free shipping as well. Amazon is not alone. There are about 81 apps on the App Store which allow you to compare prices in real time just by scanning a barcode or just by taking a picture of an object. Amazon has changed the way people shop. Travelers also are much better educated about their options, about their shopping options. They are very intelligent. They don't just believe what you throw to them, they will do their comparisons, right? In fact, I was at a conference, and next to me was the head of travel for Google. And he shared a very interesting statistic. He said that people typically will go to 21 different websites on 3 different devices in 7 different sessions before they click book for an airline. Now, that's a lot of patience to begin with, right? But people do their homework, and that's important. Travelers' behavior has changed when it comes to how they shop. Let's look at Uber. How many of you have taken an Uber in the last 1 week? About 30% of the room. I took an Uber here yesterday to go to the Vatican. I had 30 minutes with me, and guess what? A nice black Mercedes came to pick me up. And I was like, this is nice. For a round trip, I paid 16 euros. Unimaginable. But here you can, thanks to Uber, right? Uber has changed the way people book. Amazon was shopping. Uber is booking. How many clicks do you have to do to call a cab on Uber? No, 1. 1, it has your location, you just say click, right? You can do the, call UberX right now or call a Uber Black right now. Why is that? How is it that airlines have typically got 5 steps to go book your flight, but Uber has just 1 click? Well, that's because they keep all your information ahead of time and you never need to enter it again, right? Why are we talking about Uber? Because Uber is important. 55% of business travelers today take an Uber rather than a cab. That's a majority. A majority of business travelers are using Uber, not a taxi. That means who is shaping their behavior? It's the likes of Uber. And if you're Air Canada and you want to be ahead of WestJet, which is a competitor, you don't want to look at what WestJet is doing. You want to look at what Uber is doing, because Uber is shaping passenger behavior, and that's how you get ahead of competition. And that's important. I'll give you an example. On Uber, this is how you enter your credit card information. You open up the app, you scan your card, you hold your credit card under the thing, it takes a picture of it, gets the number, there you go, this is the actual number and this is the scan image, gets the expiry date, and populates the whole thing itself. I never need to enter a 16-digit credit card number, flip it for the verification number, I don't have to do any of that. And guess what? In an airline, forget about credit card, I have to enter my passport data every single time I fly, no matter how many times I fly the airline. But guess what? Airlines are actually learning. Here's EasyJet. EasyJet now allows you to just take a picture of your passport, reads all your data, and never enter the information ever again on the EasyJet app. I learned this just yesterday. I'm flying to Geneva tonight on EasyJet, and it said, would you like to enter your passport information so you never have to enter it again? I was like, great. So I scanned my passport, and it's all in. And it was pretty accurate, too. And I don't have to do it again. I investigated further before this presentation. How did EasyJet do it? They did not reinvent the wheel. They actually went to the same vendor who powers it for Uber and said, can you do it for us? And said, sure. It's the same thing, right? So airlines are learning as well. And they are adapting because user behavior is changing. People hate entering information all over again every single time they have to book. Something to think about, okay? Not only are airlines changing, Uber is learning from airlines too. Just 3 days ago, Uber announced that they're going to be now tying up with different companies to enhance your travel experience. So for a 10-minute Uber ride, for a student, let's say, you're going to get a playlist of music for 10 minutes in partnership with Spotify. So it already knows what you like to listen to, and it gives you songs you might like to listen to. For if you like rock music, you might get a rock music playlist for 10 minutes. For a 5-minute trip, here's a 5-minute news update for work, based on what you like reading anyway on your phone. Now that's interesting. It's offering in-flight entertainment, like airlines do. If Uber can leverage the 10 minutes within the cab and actually make money of it, typically airlines fly passengers 2 hours to 24 hours, depending on if I'm going from Ottawa to Toronto, where I live, or Ottawa to Toronto to Delhi, which is the new Air Canada flight, right? That's a huge opportunity and a gold mine. Uber is learning from airlines. We can do better as well, right? So that's Uber. Third one, Airbnb. Who has used Airbnb before? Wow, not bad. More than half the room. So for those who are unaware, Airbnb allows you to stay in a stranger's house. As odd as it sounds, it actually works. It's much better than hotels. You can actually be staying next to the 5-star hotel that you might have paid 5 times the price for and actually meet a local and have a much nice experience. I've personally not stayed in a hotel unless someone else is paying for it for over a year now. And it's always been Airbnbs, and I've absolutely loved the experience. But it works only because we trust Airbnb. It works because it allows us to interact in ways that we have never done before. So for my Geneva trip tonight, I was browsing different locations, and I found this guy. It's a very nice room, and it's a decent price for a couple of nights. And then I saw something interesting. Look at that. I can email this guy, and I can message him using Messenger. Now that's interesting. I don't need to open a new app like WhatsApp or Messenger to interact with my host or with my potential host. Airbnb is allowing me to interact with this guy instantly by embedding this messenger function. So Facebook now allows Messenger to be embedded in a third-party app. Think about it for potential of providing customer service from an airline perspective, where you no longer need to call a number and be on hold for 20 minutes. You no longer need to send a public tweet saying, why is my flight delayed? What if all of this is private? What if all of this is direct with the airline? That's interesting. And KLM has just taken a step to introduce Messenger within its own app. So you can now just get your PNR number or ask for a new gate change, or change your reservation just by sending your PNR number over Messenger. It's private, so it's not like Twitter or Facebook where it's all public, right? So it's secure data as well. Things are changing. Things are changing in how travelers interact with the brands and how they like to be receiving service from airlines as well. And finally, Tripadvisor. When was the last time you booked a hotel without reading a review? All of us read reviews, right? You think, why would I ever book a hotel without reading a review? But let me ask you this. When was the last time you read a review for an airline before you booked the ticket? No, you just sort by price, and you book, right? Or you sort by duration, and you book. Why the dichotomy? How is it that for hotels, you must read a review, and for airlines, not really? Guess what? It's not because there is no need for it, but until now, there was no such service. But it's all about to change. 3 weeks ago, Tripadvisor has announced a Tripadvisor for airlines. Did you know that? Tripadvisor has just launched on the 1st of January a Tripadvisor for airlines. Everything is going to change. People will not book your airline or that flight without reading ratings because they are already used to doing that for hotels. In fact, I was looking this morning for Alitalia. There are already 830 ratings on Tripadvisor, and that's in 2 weeks. That means people are actively rating and reviewing, not just reading. 830 ratings in 2 weeks, and that's for Alitalia. If you look at bigger airlines, there are over thousands of ratings already in just a couple of weeks. And I think you're doing pretty well to begin with, just for a start. And there's an option where, as an airline manager, you can send a request to Tripadvisor to start replying, just like hotels do, and manage this well. Because today, people do not book hotels without ratings, and tomorrow they will not book airlines without ratings. There's a big change coming. Oops, that zoomed in too much. So now I shared with you 4 big trends here, okay? That consumer apps are disrupting travel. Because of Amazon, we changed the way we shop. Because of Uber, we changed the way we book. We just want one click. We don't want to input information. Because of Airbnb, we changed the way we interact with brands. And Tripadvisor is all about trust and ratings. Okay? Now, what does this mean for you? Well, quite simply, you need to evolve. Okay? You need to look at things differently. You need to project yourself differently. And airlines are evolving. I've got an example from JetBlue on how the airline has evolved its own app. If we can have the sound up, please. So what was the surprising thing you noticed in that app? What did you see that's typically not in an airline app or on an airline website? Expenses, right? It's never in an airline website or in an airline app, but every business person needs to do expenses, right? It's just like anytime you go outside your city, you have to stay in a hotel or an Airbnb. If you're on a business trip, you have to do your expenses, right? So JetBlue is thinking holistically on how to add value to the traveler, right? If a person is traveling on business often, then he needs to do expenses. And why don't we offer an easy way to just scan and let him do his expenses? It gets them to open the app more often. And if it gets them to open the app more often, potentially it can get them to book more often or be inspired to travel more often, right? If they see, oh, I've got 100,000 miles balance, maybe they can redeem their miles more often. It's a matter of usage. It's a matter of driving affinity to the brand and not just loyalty. And that's changing. Okay, so JetBlue is evolving. Now let's focus specifically on the travel agency business. How do we evolve there? There's this big theme that we'll be discussing later around declining travel agent loyalty. What do we do? Well, let's rethink the model. Has anyone heard of Lola? Lola. Lola stands for longitude and latitude, just the first two letters. Lola is an app by the founder of Kayak. You all know Kayak, right? Kayak's founder has left now, along with his CTO, and they've started a new company called Lola. It's a travel app which allows you to book the tickets, but you're not booking the tickets yourself. They've actually hired 100 travel agents to help you book your ticket. And their differentiating factor is everything is going towards self-service, so why don't we make the travel agent relevant again? They're hiring, this is a tech company which is hiring full-time travel agents with at least 5 to 10 years of experience to help passengers book their flights. More like a travel concierge service. Oh, where would you like to go? I would love to go to Rome. Oh, how many days? Is it for leisure? Who are you going with? Family or friends or for work? And it's a consultative process. It's built on a chat system. You don't see a booking engine and select dates. It's just a chat system like a WhatsApp or a Messenger. But it's powered by 100 travel agents. Now that's thinking differently about the model. It's going to be released in March. This is the maximum I could find out about the app right now. But I do know that they have hired 100 travel agents by the end of last year, and they're training them up now for passenger interactions. Okay? So how can we evolve in the B2B space, in the travel agent space? I've got 3 ideas. The first one is, what if you empower travel agents to be an extension of your own sales team? It's just like how marketing today is not what you say it is, it's what they say it is, right? So how can you empower travel agents to do the marketing on your behalf? How can you give them more information on their fingertips? I mean, here's a typical research for a flight. Okay? A passenger sees a television ad, a non-stop service from Berlin to Mexico City. And then the next day he's like, Mexico City, that'll be a great vacation. And then the next morning, he's on his iPad or his phone. What was that airline that offered flights to Mexico City? Can't really recall, but yeah, Mexico City is where I want to go. Okay? And then he goes, does his searches online, flights to Mexico City, flights from Berlin, and finally sees, American Airlines has a flight to Mexico City. Let's book it. Now, it started with Lufthansa announcing new flights to Mexico City, but this guy ends up booking American Airlines. That is very often the case. Whether or not they do this online or with a travel agent, based on the inputs that they're getting for information, they may or may not book the original airline that they started with, the airline that inspired them to travel in the first place. So what can you do to empower these travel agents? Can you give them access to real-time collateral or access to a back-end site where they can get not just your fares, but also new destinations and things that they can talk about? Because travel agents are often consulting with the client in a back-and-forth manner. How can you empower them better? The second thing is real-time information. We saw how Airbnb has that messenger function where I can interact directly with my host. Can you offer this service not to travelers only, but to travel agents? Can travel agents reach out to you, the airline manager, directly on your WhatsApp or through Messenger or through a dedicated service where they don't need to email you for information or use the traditional means of getting information? How can it be instant? How can it be in such a way that if the passenger is asked a question of the travel agent and the travel agent doesn't know, he can just reach out and get that answer quickly? It's something to think about because everyone wants information at their fingertips. And we are assuming here that the traveler is already quite well educated, and the travel agent may be in a situation where he may not have all the answers to begin with, right? Next, we saw ratings and how Tripadvisor is moving to ratings for airlines. What if you have ratings for travel agents? Why not? If we have ratings for hotels, now ratings for airlines, what if we have ratings for travel agents? I know right now, internally, travel agents might be ranked by how much business they bring in or market shares and things like that. What if you have an internal rating based on how well travel agents are rated by travelers? You must have seen on some airports, they've got this 3 smiley, green smiley, yellow smiley, and red smiley on how happy you are with the immigration official or the security check. What if you have that next to the travel agent and it comes directly to the airline? Something to think about. Why not? Because people are already used to ratings, right? And next, we are talking about these different possibilities. What if we combine all of these into an app, not for passengers, but for travel agents? An app that allows you, the airline, to interact directly with the travel agents who are bringing you lots of business. In many airlines' case in this room, up to 90% of your business for certain markets, right? You're already investing so much in your website, in your own airline app. Why not invest in a way to engage with the travel agents directly that takes them beyond the incentives, right? Because another airline will come and throw in more incentives and they might swing. How can you get them to be more loyal? It's through interaction. It's through empowering them with more information. Is by ensuring that you're always in touch with them with this direct communication, right? So this app, of course, will then generate data which you can mine much better because you now own this data. From ratings to how much information is being requested to, of course, how much sales they're bringing in, market share, and things like that. It's all in your favor if you're to do this. So now to sum up, the key is it's about, we know that human behavior is changing, and we must go along with it. And I've got a very good example here from South Korea on how to go along with human behavior. When behavior changes, the brand changes too.
South Korea is a unique market. Tesco has been evolving itself, adjusting to the local market. It even changed the name itself from Tesco to Home Plus. And at last, it grew to rank number 2 in Korea. But Tesco had to overcome one obstacle, a fewer number of stores compared to the number 1 company, Emirates. Mission: could we become number 1 without increasing the number of stores? We made an in-depth study into Koreans once more. Koreans are the second most hardworking people in the world. For them, grocery shopping once a week is a dreaded task. So we decided to approach these busy, tired people. Idea: let the store come to the people. We created virtual stores, hoping to blend into people's everyday lives. Our first try was subway stations. Although virtual, the displays were exactly the same as actual stores, from the display to the merchandise. Only one thing was different. You used smartphones to shop. Scan the QR code with your phone, and the product automatically lands in your online cart. When the online purchase is done, it will be delivered to your door right after you get home. People can relax more after work and on weekends.
실제로 보면서 사니까 진짜 좋은 것 같아요. 편하니까.
Result: people can shop at Tesco Home Plus wherever they go without having to visit the actual store. Moreover, we could change their waiting time to shopping time. After this campaign, online sales increased tremendously. Through this campaign, 10,287 consumers visited the online Home Plus mall using smartphones. The number of new registered members rose by 76%, and online sales increased 130%. Currently, Home Plus has become number 1 in the online market and is a very close second offline.
So, very fascinating example. And this is not even recent. It's, I think, at least a year old. Question for you. How long do you think South Koreans wait at the train station before a train arrives? It's South Korea. It's 2 minutes. Trains every 2 minutes. 2 minutes, right? How long do we wait at the boarding gate before we board the plane? Make the connection, right? The thing is, human behavior is changing, and we just have to think creatively on how to adapt to this new behavior. And that will ensure that you stay ahead of the game, that you ensure that travelers keep traveling you, and travel agents remain loyal as well. Thank you very much. We have time for questions?
That was a great presentation, Shashank.
Thank you.
Any questions from the audience? You guys are still awestruck.
Awestruck. I hope it's awestruck and dumbfounded, not anything else. If you'd like a copy of the slides, just drop me an email and I'll send you the videos and examples.
Okay. I have a question for you.
Yes.
So great presentation, right? It definitely says that the customers are more connected. Do you see a pattern? Because especially with the millennials becoming adults in next 3 years, and then they will have their own credit cards, they will have their own driving licenses, right? Do you see a major shift in the pattern from what it is right now? So, or the way they are behaving on social media or selling tickets on social media? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, I mean, they want to control everything, right? They want to have control of everything. There's a new app that's come up, for example, for millennials pretty much, which allows them to trade seats once they have reached the boarding gate. So I'm sitting in the middle seat. I want to trade this with you because you're sitting at the extra legroom exit seat, which you may or may not have paid for. And I can just put up an auction which announces I'm at the boarding gate and I say, hey, anyone wants 21C? And you can say, yeah, I'll trade it with you for $20. For money. And Airline is not even involved in this. There are 2 apps live, not just one, which allows people to trade seats impromptu, just impromptu on the gate. And you think, wait a minute, these are airline seats. How can you be trading airline seats without having the airline at the game? But guess what? It's happening. Just like Uber came in and said, how can you be driving taxis without owning taxis? Right? So the shift is happening. And people are used to, not have, Uber doesn't own any taxis. Airbnb doesn't own any rooms. So why should I be paying for seats owned by airlines? So the shift is happening in ways you might not even imagine. Uber today got into the public transport business. Yesterday, they announced a helicopter service in tie-up with Airbus. So you can now fly to Sundance Festival on an Uber chopper, on an Uber helicopter. It's $190. Last year, they had it in in Cannes. So from Nice airport to Cannes for the film festival, you could get an Uber helicopter for 100 euros. And now it's a permanent service where there are dedicated Airbus helicopters for Uber. Who's saying they won't come to airplanes soon? Right? So absolutely, millennials, I think, are changing quite a lot of things, and at best, their habits are unpredictable. So the best we can do is stay ahead of the game, see who's moving the needle, and try to, be there ourselves.
Yeah. Interesting.
Hi, thank you for the presentation, very interesting.
Sure.
I've got a question. You're talking here about shifting behaviors. Now everyone is just interacting with the telephone, tablets, not personally, not physically sometimes.
Yeah.
You talk about Uber, which is a big threat to traditional taxis. What do you in the airline industry, we also have the traditional agents.
Yes.
What do you think all this movement will impact those traditional agents in the corner?
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think travel agent business is not just being threatened now. It was already when, .coms came up and airline websites came up. And, I think Lufthansa now charges for anything that's not coming from Lufthansa.com. So the shift is happening. What this has done is, firstly, it's reduced the number of travel agents. But those who are left need to adapt and adapt quickly. And that's where things like Lola come up, right? Where travel agent is the center of that app. Another trend, when we work with airlines, we often do these trend studies on traveler personas. A persona we discovered was what we call the silent traveler. This is the type of traveler who will sit at the boarding gate, and if he has a problem, he will not go to the gate agent. He will tweet about it because he just wants to be in his mobile phone. Typically, the silent traveler's first engagement with the airline is inside the plane when he meets the flight attendant. There's no other touch point at all. 0 touch points from like 50 touch points. This is where I think travel agents can come in again. If he is booked from a travel agent or taken the help of a travel agent, that means the travel agent is the only person he has interacted with on behalf of the airline before he meets the flight attendant. So if you empower the travel agent well, then the travel agent is a brand ambassador, right? And I think that's another opportunity. Any other questions? If not, I'll be around in the breaks throughout till the evening, and happy to.
I still have one more question.
Oh, you have one more? Yes. I was trying to go for the coffee.
So there is a lot of disruption which is happening, right? And if you look at it, most of these disruptions are coming from nowhere, right? Someone which is not an established company, or it's coming from places where you don't expect coming it out from, and then suddenly it's just in your face.
In your face, yeah.
Right. So within an airline, right, which is an organization by itself, it has its own set of processes. What is your take on how should how can this kind of initiatives be built within the given set of frameworks which most of the airlines operate in?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think Lufthansa is in the room, right? It was someone I met from Lufthansa earlier. There you go. Lufthansa is here. If you don't mind, I'll share a Lufthansa case study for this example. About 18 months ago, there was a small team at Lufthansa which decided to build a travel app. Now, this is not the Lufthansa mobile app, but this was more for general travelers. And great idea. It was like trip planning features, business expense, and 10 other things, including hailing an Uber once you land at Frankfurt Airport or Munich Airport. Great app, great idea. It took them 16 months to get approval. Just because the approval process in a traditional airline has the checks and balances, right? Lufthansa is one case. I mean, I was in QR, and God forbid, I don't even want to propose an app in QR because I know it will take much longer. It's the realm of IT department, and they will do it, right? Lufthansa, of course, learned from this experience and then did something very different. Lufthansa started this thing called the Innovation Hub, which, by the way, is not based in Frankfurt or Munich, but in Berlin, where half of the staff, and correct me if I'm wrong, half of the staff is from Lufthansa, the other half is Berlin startups. They're not even Lufthansa staff. And they sit together in one place, and they brainstorm and work on things for the future. One of the things that Lufthansa is coming up with, one of the first projects coming out of the Lufthansa Innovation Hub in Berlin, is actually a drone management company. This is public, so I'm not sharing any private data. A drone management company, you would think, what are you talking about? Well, if you have a drone, then it typically needs to follow air traffic management rules. And guess who knows how to deal with air traffic management rules? An airline, right? So Lufthansa provides the air traffic control and management expertise, and the startups creating drones provide the drones, and you have a drone management company. And they can do everything from de-icing airplanes to monitoring air traffic and other stuff. Not even air-related, just city traffic, for example. Now that's interesting, that's very disruptive. It's not something that would have come inside an airline boardroom. And Lufthansa is not alone. There's this whole trend of innovation hubs, or labs, as we call them, coming up. We have just created a new customer experience lab with LATAM in Santiago in Chile, with Lan and Tam coming together, and which will focus on improving the customer experience across different touch points, where the aim is not to turn a touch point from green to yellow or yellow to green, but go from yellow to gold. Green is what other airlines do. How can we go gold? Ryanair has set up this thing called Ryanair Labs, which is not at the airport. It's in downtown Dublin, which aims to create apps and new technologies first for Ryanair, and that's the guinea pig. You test it on all the travelers booking on our website, and then commercialize this for other airlines. So they are in the business of creating apps for the airline industry, which are just being tested and piloted at Ryanair. Emirates has taken a completely different route. They don't have a lab, but they have this thing called the Emirates Hackathon, which is held every 6 months. They've held 4 until now in Dubai, San Francisco, and Singapore, where they will partner with local universities, local hackers and developers to really break the airline model, break it. They will give them the Emirates API to develop stuff for Emirates based on the stuff, and then they will go back and they may choose to adopt it. But when I spoke with the person at Emirates who's leading this, he said the aim is not to commercialize this the day after tomorrow in Emirates. The aim is to show my managers and my team and my board how the world has changed and how much farther ahead we need to be. So a very good question, and airlines are tackling this by ensuring that this innovation thing doesn't remain within the behemoth that's an airline or the monolithic structure, but really is outside like a lab or a hackathon or outside the hub city of Berlin rather than in Frankfurt.
Thanks.
Sure.
Now, I have a question for
Yes, Ajit.
You were talking about the developments,
Yeah.
the mobile apps, the airlines trying to move forward with all these developments. Is .com and the online travel agencies, those developments, and when you look at the consumer behavior, is it a threat to the mere existence of traditional channels?
So the question is the travel agent the
The
threat?
developments on the airline side, is it a threat to a
Travel agent.
traditional travel agents channel?
That's a very good question. So the question is whether .com and the airline developments are the threat to the traditional travel agents. I think yeah, absolutely, because consumer behavior is changing. Airlines need to adapt. A simple case in point, I fly Air Canada very often because I live in Canada, and it's been a long time since I used the Air Canada website. I've just been using your app because it's just so convenient. All the information is saved, and I can have my boarding pass in my mobile phone, and there is no need to do anything else. So absolutely, airlines making travel process more convenient for travelers makes us stick closer to airlines, which then is a threat to travel agents. But I think you have to strike a balance because certain markets, let's say Japan, is extremely travel agent reliant. Every metro station in Japan has a travel agency, which was my first sort of the thing I was surprised by. Every metro station in Japan has a travel agent. Why would they do that? Because they love to walk in. And I think it's horses for courses, right? I'm sure Air Canada app is very prevalent in Canada, but let's say to your new route to Dubai, you might have to deal with travel agents, right? So I think it's horses for courses. Some markets, you have to work with the travel agents, and you have to take care of them. Other markets, you might be airline heavy. So you have to play a balancing game, I think. It's surely a threat.